What's up, chat? Welcome back to the stream. It's Monday. Prepare to indulge in a little bit of mayhem. This Monday, I'm just coming back off the Battle for Salvation major. They call it a GT, but it's 150 players. Come on, it's a major. Let's go. Come on, guys. Come on. Crazy live streams over the course of the weekend. Fucking maybe some of the, I think, the most consistently good 40K we've had on the channel in a really long time. We've had some events that have been like just every game's a banger. This one, I think, every game was strong, but we didn't have any bad games. Like, none of them were just blowouts one way or another. Some of them, like, ended quickly, but they ended quickly after a protracted period of battling each other, blowing each other up. So I feel like the streams this weekend were incredibly good. In addition to being good, the other thing that's good right now is the fucking metagame, chat. Let's take a quick peek. A couple things are interesting here. My capture would turn on. All right, here we go. A couple things are interesting, and I want to talk about. First of all, look at all these events. We had a ton of events. One thing that's really curious, and I think kind of goes to show the strength of small table 40K, or at least like mid-table 40K. If we were to call it bronze, silver, gold, where gold is major, super major plus level, this would be the silver table events. These are GTs, but not necessarily large enough to be major level. 5 rounds, between 20 and 60 players typically. So 20, 80 players, I guess. Somewhere in that realm. But 5 rounds that go to a single undefeated. And this weekend was chock-a-block with them. It was crazy. The total number of players this weekend would have been enormous.
Andrew Ward donated $50 through Super Chat. Glad I got to thank you at BFS for all the great content. For my first GT since 5th, ended at 4-2.
Andrew, thank you so much for the big Super Chat, buddy. That's amazing. That helps a ton. First GT since 5th, you went 4-2. That is incredibly respectable. I hope you had a great time. Thanks for coming up and talking to me as well. I really appreciate that. People tell me, I don't know, telling me nice things. I like that. Shocker. But it also, I don't know, it's very inspiring. So helps me get up every morning and get all this done. I'm going to be a little drowsy today, chat, because I'm coming off the back of like maybe 3 hours of sleep. Because I finished, obviously had to ramp up streaming last night. At about, I got out of the venue at about 9:30, I think, and then immediately go into do best arms in 40K. So I got to bed at about 6 a.m. So we're a little sleepy today. But I literally just got home from the live stream. I don't know, maybe 15 minutes ago or something. I feel like I'm a little low on my side camera here. Let me see if I can fix that. Ooh, let's do that. Maybe that's better. Is that better? I don't know. We'll see. But so this weekend had not only just an incredible volume of events, but also a lot of these like mid-table events. And I think the interesting thing about that is that you tend to get a much more diverse metagame at this mid-table. One thing that I've actually like, it's come up repeatedly, and I'm certainly going to make a video about this. I think it's worth documenting currently because we're in what I think I like to call the golden hour of an edition, where you get to the point where the edition's basically fully released, right? We're like waiting on Drukhari to be fully legal, which should be next week because they just got Munitorums on Thursday. And once that becomes fully, like once that's fully out, like we're gonna balance fix between now and like next June or something, and then that's it for 10th probably. So the next 6 months are probably gonna be the best 40K you've ever played. And assuming that none of the future releases, like we're talking about Drukhari, Iron Hands, White Scars, all this stuff, assuming none of these like blow out the metagame in a weird way, the game's going to be in an incredible spot, and this certainly showcases that. So the interesting thing as well about these smaller events is that we're in this really cyclic meta where it's a huge game of rock, paper, scissors, where each a bunch of different faction archetypes are each able to counter one another. So we had a little discussion at the end of yesterday with Drew Southborn after his game. He said, hey, my list is really good. It beats everything except for Eldar. Well, listen, you play like melee aggro. You play most of like aggro sort of infantry builds into Eldar. You sweep them, right? You just like you put too many models for them to deal with limited activations on the table, and you push them, and then they just get wound up. We watched it happen at Crucible, right? Raven Guard, Rapid Ingress. They drop a bunch of dudes, and they just hit you with consecutive wave of Vanguard veterans until everything's dead. That said, right, a super tanky army, maybe not Leagues of O10 because you have Devastator Centurions, but something that's super tanky and that has the sustain to deal with those waves of incoming infantry is going to beat that. So you have this amazing sort of rock, paper, scissors of all these list archetypes that are all beating each other, and a lot of the game becomes interesting matchups. So in the more limited rounds, the more limited numbers of games that we see in most of these events, all of them are you see this incredible diversity because a lot of them have the capacity in only 5 games to dodge their bad matchups. And I actually a couple of people are messaging me about some of these lists and talking to me about how they could be successful or non-successful in particular matchups. And I think it's really interesting to showcase the fact that when you get to this like mid-table 40k, these GT level 40k, things get really cool. So, yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. I want to dive into the 2 biggest events of the weekend. We had Battle for Salvation Major, Gem City GT, 67 players registered, I think 64 played. That went to 2 undefeated after 5 rounds. This one was live streamed over by our friends at Tabletop Live, so you want to watch the coverage of that one, go ahead and check that one out. But obviously, we have a lot of X1s here for Battle for Salvation, so that's what we're going to discuss today. Rock, paper, scissors, and Eldar. No, I think Eldar is part of the rock, paper, scissors. Eldar, they kill. If you are big and tanky and you want to play stand-up 40k, where you put your models on one side of the table and the other person puts their models on the other side of the table, and then you have a big fight, but your numbers are bigger than their numbers, Eldar are going to beat you every time because they're simply not going to play that. They're going to kill you with fire dragons. They're going to go back into transport, and they're going to rinse and repeat until you're dead. However, if you don't play that game plan, if you have reactive abilities, if you have interrupts, if you have just like a aggressive push that doesn't play that very static game, you can beat Eldar. And we saw that for sure. Like Eldar's, I don't know what their win rate is right now. I haven't looked up recent results, but they had 1 GT win this weekend. 1. It wasn't a win. Oh no, they did win, but it was 1 of 2 undefeateds. And so it's really interesting. It's interesting and cool. So I'm super excited. 26 of 27 factions had at least one player go X01. Has that ever happened? I'm probably, right? In the grand scheme of all of 40k, probably. In recent memory, I don't know. I think it's the coolest thing right now. I think that post this more recent, like obviously there are still problems with the recent updates and things, but we have gotten to a point where the metagame is healing. We are nothing is too strong. Everything is beatable. Even if it's not by you, it might be someone else, and they can knock out that strong thing before you hit it, and that gives you a chance to succeed. It's amazing, chat. I also think, and maybe I'll eat crow on this a little bit, but the mission format, while it does feel too second player oriented still, I've been personally experiencing, and I've been watching games where first player is able to leverage an advantage. Part of it's that I think events are learning the chapter-approved format now that we're 6 months into it, and they're figuring out which mission combinations work and which are really unacceptable for competitive play. Nova still ran Supply Drop, which was wild, but they ran Supply Drop to qualify for Top Cut. Okay. But, like we're seeing events run multiple instances of Take and Hold, multiple instances of like Linchpin, Hidden Supplies, these very balanced kind of, missions. Terraform seeing more play. In addition to the fact that I think the player base is learning how to play first, and we're seeing a lot of players like all in or play really aggressively in order to win going first. And that I think has helped the game quite a bit too. Challenger cards obviously are gone, which should give the second player a little bit of a bump. And maybe those getting rid of has a more impactful, more beneficial effect to the metagame as well, which obviously I really like Challenger cards. I wish they had rebalanced them, but obviously their removal is a more balanced a more balanced meta than we had them. A more balanced mission format, I should say. So yeah, I think that the game's in, and I was talking to some players like over the weekend about this. The game is, I think, in the best spot that Warhammer 40k as a game may ever have been in, which is crazy. 10th edition is the most balanced edition we've ever had. You may, like me, have problems with how it has achieved that balance, but you cannot disagree with the fact that it is the most balanced we've ever had, and it seems like right now we are in the most balanced meta. So that's fucking rad. Going first on Scorched Earth? Yeah. Scorched Earth is another one of those ones. Like, I think they ran it round 3 this weekend, I think. And I feel like there's a couple missions, and you can even throw Supply Drop in here. I think Purge the Foes may be another one, where it's kind of unbalanced, but you throw it in early rounds, and it can kind of like... It's like you... It's like you put all the results in a sieve, right? and as you go through the funnel of Swiss pairings and players go undefeated or whatever, you expect that the player with a higher skill level or the player that more like a more meta list is going to get through the sieve. But if you put it at the top, you pair all weird people, then you give that sieve a nice little shake, and a bunch of random shit gets through. I think it's interesting to shake up the game in round 1. I don't personally feel like you should play Scorched Earth or those other missions later on in the game. It gives you the opportunity to, like a skilled player going second on Scorched Earth. I played on RTT recently that used Scorched Earth, and I was able to win it. I think we actually played it in round 1 of a pod, maybe round 2. And I was able to win it going first. And if you're very good and you're very practiced at the mission, you can get through it going first. So I think if the skill difference is larger, it's a more interesting game. But I definitely don't think, like, past round 2, you probably shouldn't be playing it. But it is what it is. Cool. There's one other thing I want to talk about before we hop into the meat of the discussion chat. I did have some technical difficulties over the course of the weekend. If you were there bright and early for the day 2 live stream, you probably have noticed it wasn't good. And that is because my poor computer that I'm currently on right now is, I think it's on its last legs. It needs some fundamental new hardware, I think. And I'm sure I'm working out how I'm going to do that. is the long and short of it. Basically, my computer right now it suffered like a power driver failure, which I think is a motherboard problem. I have to dig into the exact problems with it. But once it is hooked up to the full streaming setup, I believe the issue is that the power draw from all the additional accoutrements, the cameras, the microphones, all that stuff, is too great for the board to handle, and it crashes. And in that instance, I actually lost access. A bunch of my ports went down. I lost all my wireless functionality, so any wireless stuff I had connected just refused to connect for the rest of the day. I had to jury rig it. It's probably good it wasn't on camera. I had a very, very ad hoc setup to get things back up and running for round 2. So round 1, I didn't have any microphone for myself because my microphone had disconnected at that point and I couldn't reconnect it without disrupting the players. I had to basically get in and like futz with a bunch of shit and reconnect and do stuff and move ports around. It was a whole thing. But the longest story, to make a long story short, I'm gonna need a new computer. And I am sort of wrapping my head around how I'm gonna work that financially. The live streaming section of the channel is it's basically like a big money pit. Essentially, all the videos and sponsorships and stuff that I do for the rest of the channel it essentially funds the live streaming. The live streaming is a largely negative sum game. And so I'm not sure I could justify putting like what is probably going to end up being like $2,000 or $3,000 into new equipment for it. So it might be something that I try to crowdfund, maybe. I'm not sure. I sort of don't like the idea of doing that. Like I don't like asking people for help, but I think that it might be time that we need to do that. This weekend, for example, and I'll probably do a video about like talking more about the economics of it. But like this weekend, for example, I at least at time of recording, I did not make money. I lost money based on travel expenses and things like that. So it's tough. It's a tough situation. So that's kind of what's going on. The Omnis I was testing you. I think I passed, to be honest. We did not have to shut down the stream, and we just had one game with no commentary. But fortunately, it was Alex Fennel on stream versus Steven Adams, who's a sweetheart. And both of them were like really gregarious. It was a really fun, cool game. So I don't think I really needed input there. So I felt like that was a good one. If it was two very taciturn players trying to do extremely complex stuff without communicating with each other, it would have been really bad. But I think those two together were a perfect combination to make the stream entertaining, even if I wasn't on microphone. So I mean, hats off to them. Alex Fennel's always a fucking gem. I wish I had more time. He actually dropped right after that game happened because they went a little over time. I wish I had time to thank him for being such a sweetheart, but he's good every time we get him on stream. So it was really fun. Have the tech priest look at it, yeah, for sure. Costs usually become part of advertising budget. Think about events is lucrative. Their costs become part of your advertising budget. I'm not sure what that means. Necron player lost their Silent King as Trevor became the Silent King. It's true. I got hit by a grenade and died. That was funny, too. People did not expect the Silent King to die, and a flash kit ran over and threw a stick bomb at him, and he went away. We're criticizing Purge. I don't disagree with Purge. I think Purge is an okay format. I think it's good to restrict MSU builds, but I don't think, for example, it's not one of those missions that I would necessarily put in like the final round. The nice thing about, well, Purge does give a bit of a leg up for second player. In my opinion, I don't feel like Purge should bottom round 5 score because you get bottom turn scoring for kills every turn. So like you always have a leg up the entire game. So there is like a kind of a huge benefit to go second in Purge. So it's a little imbalanced in that case. It can construct matchups where like one player just loses. If players are equal skill, one player just loses on list building, right? There's not really, like if you're playing Drukhari into fucking Knights or something and you're just like, cool, I die, I guess. And that's not, in my opinion, the competition I want to see on like finals table for something. But I don't know. That's my personal opinion. I do think Purge is important in the ecosystem, but it's probably in a category of missions that I wouldn't run for finals game, if that makes sense. I do also like Purge, but I also play 6 fucking Greater Demons, so I think I'm very biased. I'm trying to couch my opinions based on my bias there, chat. Most times creators or organizers lose money on events. You justify it at advertising cost. Yeah, for sure. And I think like it's kind of the opposite for this channel. The way it works is I don't believe that it's not that I don't believe. I think that it's sort of demonstrably, like I'm not getting new subscribers or new viewers from live streaming, but what I am doing is adding additional value to the people who are already here, to which I appreciate. But it also does mean that it makes it it's difficult to like continuously justify, because an event will oftentimes take like between 40 to 60 working hours depending on travel, because obviously like I have to physically get to the event, and so it's tough to justify basically like writing that off and not getting anything from it on a consistent basis if I'm not sort of, I don't know, continuing to make money. It's tough. It's a tough situation. It's a tough situation. Last time we played Purge, your opponent conceded end of round 2. I mean, that can happen for sure, depending on if the matchup's a little unbalanced. Unbalanced in terms of unit count. Definitely. So yeah, that is what I have to say. So I'll probably be, I need to kind of evaluate my options on that front. And what I might do is ask for additional support from the community. As I mentioned before, it's not something I like to do, but I think it's something that I will probably need to do in order to continuously function. And hopefully what it will also allow me to do is add more functionality to my live streaming in the future. Because right now, the setup I have for singles play is basically like the upper limit of my machine's technical capacity. Team events get really awkward because I start to overload my computer's ability to process all of my attachments. And I think, like, currently, I don't think, as of yesterday, I definitely don't think I could do a full full gamut at a team event right now. I think it would simply kill my machine. Singles events I can probably do with some duct tape and spit. But team events require like 2 to 3x the technical specifications just because of the amount of support that you need to apply. So what I theoretically, if I'm able to build a new machine specifically for live streaming, I would be able to provide better coverage for those events as well, which would be nice. Advertising for a PC builder to build me a portable streaming PC. That would be cool. I don't think that my advertisements are worth a portable streaming PC, to be fair. I am not that large of a channel. If I had 1 million subscribers, maybe, and I was getting 500k views a video, potentially that would make sense. But I think right now, at the time of recording, my partnership rates are significantly lower than the cost of building a powerful computer. All right. Well, that's my sob story. Let's talk about some fucking 40k chat. Should we dive in? What do we want to discuss first? I want to go through X and ones. I already obviously talked about these lists in my best armies in 40k video this morning. We watched several games from Cameron Marinaccio on stream. He had a recorded game and a live streamed game, which was very impressive in both times. I was extremely impressed by Cameron's play. He actually has a little bit of a interesting storyline. So at the end of round, if we go to round 5 pairings, at the end of round 5 pairings, there were 3 undefeated players. Or excuse me, there was more than that. There were 5 undefeated players. Sam Pope, Johnny Zoo, Jack Murphy, Steven Adams, Drew Saltsborn, all undefeated. That created the pairings for round 6. Steven Adams versus Drew Saltsborn on table 1, which is what we watched. Sam Pope and Jack Murphy played. That game was apparently extremely, extremely close. Came down to a 3-point game. There were a bunch of like really tight judge calls and stuff that had to be made. I guess that game was really tight. And then Johnny Zoo paired down into Cameron. Cameron paired up and beat a 5-0 player. So he did great with Adeptus Sororitas. He was playing kind of standard Hallowed Martyrs, as though interestingly the unique take, the twist, was triple Hospitaller, triple Celestian Sacresant, and he just jammed mid. So he has all the normal stuff, all the normal Hallowed Martyr stuff. Good shooting. We got Castigators in the back line. We have Morven Vol plus Morven Vol's unit of absolute disaster nuns. We have a jump pack Canoness for a counter punch. We have a Saintly Example utility Canoness to go die. So we lead the charge with the Saintly Example Canoness. She pushes forward, scores you points early. Anything that kills her immediately gets engaged by Celestian Sacresants as soon as the game starts. And then the Celestian Sacresants just stall out the game in the middle of the table while you get shot to death by Castigators and Morven Vol. And I guess that worked really well. One thing I pointed out on the live stream, but one thing I was really impressed by Cameron's use of Miracle Dice. He never let Miracle Dice lie fallow, which was a huge thing. Sometimes, and I always pay attention to this every time I see it, but you'll see a Sisters player and they'll look down at the Miracle Pool and they're like, I have 9 dice and none of them are above a 3. But what he did excellently is he constantly burned through bad Miracle Dice, not to necessarily gain any advantage from them, but to do things like auto pass close charges, right? He would be like, I'm on a 5-inch charge. If I hand a 3 here, it's a 2+ roll, right? So it's like it's only a 1 in 6. I think he would like hand a 3 on a 4-inch charge, like a 4-inch charge. Like, well, I'll just make it. It's fine. I'll spend a CP if I need to. But he's just like, no, there's literally no reason to ever, ever put that up to chance. He would use 2s and 3s on saving throws, like random saving throws. Like, Morven Vol's unit is going to take like a bolt pistol save. I'll drop a 2 in there. I'm going to take a 3+ save on a Battle Sister. I'll drop a 3 in there. And so I noticed very clearly that he would feed his 1s and other low numbers into Morven to recycle them, or into the Cherubs to recycle them, and then he would end up like burning through the other low numbers just naturally throughout the game. And I think that's something that a lot of Sisters players forget, and it was really, really impressive to see. So huge shout out to him for being a very good Sisters player. That was super fun to watch. And congratulations to him. Oop, that's the wrong event. For 5-1 record at the end, 4th place. But what did he actually beat in the final game there? Did I find out any more information about the 350 bribery scandal? Yes, I did. It was a total huge fabrication. It's the longest story. I was like, do I do a video on this? I don't know. I think it's an interesting topic to talk about. But I did have a discussion with the TO of the event. They were super transparent and very nice to talk about it. But basically, it was not a bribery scandal. It was a talked out game, essentially. And I think if there's an interesting discussion to be had, I was like, do I do a video on this? I'm not sure. I don't really want to like throw players under the bus for this thing that's like it's sort of allowed in the community, even though it's like basically cheating, but it's kind of like, it's like okay cheating, if that sounds like weird. Like the community generally doesn't have a problem with it. And it was basically, to my knowledge, it was a game that was like, it was Chaos Dice versus Eldari. From what I understand, they were like, hey, Eldari like basically win this matchup every time. Do you want to just call it a 12-8 on differential scoring and then go to the bar, basically? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. And so they did that. And the judges then after the fact really like found out that they did that and then just scored it a 10-10, 0 VP scored. Essentially saying that like, well, the game wasn't played, so like theoretically you both set up theoretically you both basically like showed up to the table, didn't deploy any models, and ran out of time. So we're gonna score at 0 VPs. So instead of one player winning, it was a draw. One player ended up dropping after that anyway, so it didn't really matter. But the thing was like at one point, someone had joked in the discussion because they scored the game out and then like wandered around the hall for 30 minutes or whatever before leaving. At one point it was joked that one of them had offered a bribe to the other one. And then I guess someone overheard that and then like took it to Reddit or whatever. So according to the TOs, there was no money. It wasn't drama. They just decided to score the game out without playing it. In a way it probably would have followed anyway, and then the TOs basically rectified it after the fact. And obviously I think talked out games and unplayed games is definitely worth a discussion in like the community. I don't think it's worth throwing anyone under the bus for, though, is my opinion on it. So I didn't end up making content. But that was the long and short of the thing, you know. 50 to 100 is perfectly fine. Like as a final score, give it 15-5. They did it like 12-8, so like nobody got a huge bump on, or the way they were gonna score it was 12-8, so nobody got a big pump on pairing. But obviously, like, you should play the game out, you know. At least play the first couple turns and make sure that score's possible, because it could be like somebody just zeroes out on fucking primary, and especially in WTC scoring where the individual scores are like super relevant because the differential is what matters. So I don't know. I definitely wasn't above board for them to score out the game. But also, the judges understood that and ruled it as such, right? So, like, they took care of it immediately and they were on point. So, I don't know. It's not even an issue. Is the real thing. Sounds like Eldar games are rock paper scissors. They're very rock paper scissors, yeah. Because you're so strong against like big, slow, like heavy targets, you know, like knights or land raiders, like super heavy vehicles. Basically, they're like just auto win immediately. They immediately kill them. But in a lot of other situations, you can beat them because their actual model count's very low. Makes them really interesting. Draw 10 to 15 tactical tars and go to the pub. I mean, like, at least, you know, like, make it show that you're playing the game out. You know what I mean? At least make it seem like you're playing. Let's talk about Chaos Space Marines. Talking out games is wrong. Yeah, it's a tough situation. I don't know. I think talking out the final results of a game is much more appropriate than talking out the whole game. Talking about the whole game, I definitely don't agree with. But like scoring the last round without moving any models, like I don't know, that's fine. We're gonna save ourselves 15 minutes doing all the fiddly measuring by just drawing your cards and determining whether or not you can score them. So yeah, you know, unless the dice rolls are very relevant, I don't have an issue with talking out. There are some instances where you're like you're like bottom 3 and you're like, oh, you want to talk out? I'm gonna score all my secondaries for the rest of the game and max on primary, and then they give yourself 100. And like obviously that's not right. I don't want to name any names, but some people do that quite a bit, and I don't agree with it. What is talking out a game? So a lot of times what you'll see is towards the end of a competitive game, if the result is clear, the players, rather than going through every single game action to get to that result, usually it's like it'll happen like bottom of round 4, maybe round 5. You'll be like, you're gonna win. Let's find out how many points we get, essentially. And instead of going through like, you know, every single phase perfectly, you'll like draw your secondary cards and be like, here's what I drew. I can score these by moving these guys here. Are you okay with that? And the other person goes, yes, of course. And then you score those, and then you go to the other player's turn, and then you submit the game. So you complete the game and you come to a final score in like 5 minutes rather than taking 20 minutes to fully play everything out. And in some cases, even you'll be like, I'm gonna, you know, I drew assassinate. My whole army's gonna attack this one dude. Do you want me to roll it? And the other player's like, no, that's fine. I'm gonna assume that guy's dead because it's like a 99.999% chance that they die or something like that. It's like, it is technically incorrect, but it is as a practice, it is a long and storied history. It is rife for abuse, and that's where the problem is, where someone goes, oh, my tiebreakers matter here. Can I get a bunch of points by basically like gaslighting my opponent into thinking I can score everything for free and not having to roll any dice? And that is where the problems arise. But it's kind of like an issue where it saves players and events so much time and mental energy that it's like, you know, is it worth like just banning the practice entirely in order to stop those like, you know, 1% of people who might try to game the system? And part of it too is like you know, there's a little bit of game knowledge in there and stuff that you should have when it comes to talking out, so your opponent doesn't like try to browbeat you into giving them extra points. But it's a tough thing to adjudicate too, because at the time the losing player probably doesn't care what the winning player writes down. They're like, I lost, it's fine, I'll get like, I can score you 67 points or whatever, you get whatever you get. And they're like, oh, I got 100. Like, well, 100 might not have been mathematically possible based on the board state, but you know, well, we never know now. So it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. You say no, roll the dice out. Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm definitely a talker outer if my opponent doesn't want to play through. Like, I will basically, I will typically not ask to talk out the game. I will offer a talk out to my opponent if I'm conceding. So if I'm like round 3 and I can't win, I'll be like, let's concede. I'll concede the game, and we can go from there. I will not ask for a talk out in my own favor. I will continue rolling dice until my opponent says that they don't want me to anymore. But a lot, you know, I don't know what's going with that. That's what I do usually. If my opponent says, please stop killing all of my models, then I will usually, I don't want them to have to sit there and experience this game of 40K that they may not be enjoying, right? Because we're here to have fun playing a game. If they are either losing or winning by such a stretch that it's not like a fun mental exercise anymore, no one, in my opinion, I don't think you should force people to play. But that gets tough when you're talking about a competitive system where the actual score you get might be make a big difference. Love when a player automatically assumes they'll scoop an MSU unit with an inbound. Yeah, I mean, sometimes like it is astronomically like possible, right? You're being attacked like 30 times and you have two wounds left, and you're like, all right, fair enough. A lot of times people are a little bit extra generous with locked out damage output for sure. Yeah, anyway, that's the sum. I'm not sure 100% where I feel about it, because I think talking out's it's an important tool for the game to be more enjoyable for both parties, but obviously it does have like repercussions when it comes to a competitive system. We can talk about that in Warhamster Wednesday. It feels like a Warhamster Wednesday discussion to have. But today we're talking about lists. We're talking about Chaos Space Marines. Renegade Raiders, chat. This is what we got going on. Pretty much offer talk out if you're an RTT in approaching time. That's about it. Yeah. So Johnny Z over here, 5-1 at Battle for Salvation, running Renegade Raiders. The Chaos Lord, Fabius Bile, Hellstalker Lord Discordant. Nice thing about him is that a lot of the Renegade Raiders strats are mounted keyword, which is kind of sweet. So you get basically the full combo. You don't get the transport disembarkation combos in Renegade Raiders, but you do get stuff like the extra move at the end of the fight phase. If you fought that phase, you can move again. Or if you're engaged, I believe, at the end of the fight phase and you fought, then you can fall back. So you can do weird fallback chicanery with the Hellstalker because he moves really fast. There's also, I think he can benefit from the advanced and charge strat as well. So he's ends up being really powerful. And sometimes you give him the enhancement to full reroll next to your opponent's deployment zone. Looks like we're not taking that in this particular list, though. Had an opponent who wanted to tug out from turn 3 because you were 50 points ahead. Told them to play on them, they won. That is classic. I've been on that. I'm a salty bitch sometimes, so I'll be like, my turn 2, like my push was like shitty. I didn't do anything, and all my whole army died. I was like, well, this is over. We could maybe call it, and then I win, and I feel like such an asshole. Yeah, it does happen. Especially like if you're going second and you feel like you're just getting your shit pushed in, and then you realize that like it's about to be your turn and you have bottom 5 scoring. So you're like, oh, actually, this is fine. I'm basically 10 points up from where I think I am. If you're new to the game, it's sometimes hard to visualize how that works, but the round 5 scoring is huge for sure. All right. We've got a double Chaos Rhino. Cultist Mob, a biker unit for utility. Predator Destructors ×3, because they can get the bonus AP targeting enemies on objectives, so they can push their autocannon to AP3 if they want to, against infantry units, which is cool. Chosen unit for Fabius Bill. Another smaller chosen unit, probably for the Chaos Lord. We have no Legionnaires. Yeah, it must be for the Chaos Lord. Although he doesn't have the reroll strat, so he's just hitting people. He's just hitting people the normal way with his hammer. What a time to be alive. You ever just make a normal attack with your Chaos Lord without rerolling everything? Crazy. Crazy. I guess they can still reroll when disembarking a transport, right? So actually fine. Raptors for utility, Warp Talons, plus a Noise Marine unit for all the good stuff. Big Warp Talon unit. Definitely took a leaf out of London GT, out of Liam VSL's book. Hey, man. Warp Talons, AP3 Warp Talons feel pretty good, dude. Wait, let's just, we'll rock that. We'll rock that shit and uppy downy them every turn. Seems pretty good. Some other interesting lists that we didn't end up getting to watch on stream. There was a lot of Genestealer Cult doing well, which is sweet. Thomas Davies over here, 5-1 with GSC. Outlander Claw, so the vehicle detachment. We get OBSEC on our Atalan Jackals. Raiders have been one warp balance for a long time. I've seen a lot of 5s. I don't know if I've seen 10s that often in Raiders. I know that they are traditionally good. But a lot of times it's like a 5 and then you get more Noise Marines. Has been, I think, the classic build that I've seen. But maybe I'm out of the Renegade Raiders loop. This list has 3 Reductive Saboteurs. That's a lot. That lets you screen out the midboard so you can scout your bikers a little bit more easily. Handflamer Acolyte Hybrids ×4. Neophyte Hybrids ×2. Those guys are nice coming out of a transport because if you don't lose them, you can jump the transport onto an objective, get the transport killed, disembark onto the objective, unbattleshock yourself at the start of your turn, and then obsec it, and then leave. So they're a really good unit just to hold down points. If they're inside a truck, it's basically uninteractable from your opponent unless they're able to both shoot and charge the truck. But obviously, like, that's something that you can position around. And you have You have resilience strats in this. I think there's a -1 damage strat in Outlander Claw for the Goliath units, which can certainly help keep those guys living on objectives for a while. Double Achilles Ridge Runners with laser beams, and then double mortar teams to give the -1 or the +1 AP. 25 Adeline Jackals. Hot damn. And they obsec as well. So you have you just have like incredible primary control with these neophyte hybrids that are either deep striking or pushing up the middle of the table to obsec out of your Goliath truck. And then these guys could potentially scout if you open up the middle of the table with the Reductus Saboteurs by pushing back and putting infiltrators. You can scout to all the middle objectives going first and obsec them and then fuck off. Force your opponent to come forward either into the Reductus Saboteur detonations or out into the open that you could then kill them with Acolyte hybrids. So you start the tempo play really early. They have to then touch the objective to unobsec them, and then the Acolyte hybrids turn on because they get wound rerolls. So that's crazy. That's so many Jackals. Plus you get to jail as well in a lot of situations too. Triple Goliath Rock Grinders, which are delivering the Acolyte hybrids. Pure Strain Genestealers are good. Another good sort of skirmisher in the middle. They can clear utility units and screens and things like that. That's pretty cool. Hope I talk about the Votan list. Watch my video this morning, my dude. I'm not going to be talking about the X and O's because they're already in the video, bro. What else we got going on? Joseph Saltz. We watched him on live stream, actually. I want to talk about this list real quick. First of all, he didn't put his... I'm going to throw some shade. Hey, Marissa. Thank you for the early access Tortoise membership. We enjoy that. Got a bunch. All the videos from this weekend are up. There's 5 more battle reports on there, or recorded games on there from the event this weekend. So they are all available. They're not yet on Patreon because for whatever reason, Patreon wouldn't link to the Wi-Fi on my in my hotel. So I just couldn't upload the videos. But now that I'm back home, I should be able to upload them today. So they should be on Patreon later today. If you're a patron. First of all, thank you for being a patron if you are. But second of all, you'll be able to watch those shortly. But if you're a member, you can watch them right now. So Joseph over here, Mr. Salt, didn't put his detachment on his list. Obviously, it's very clear because you can see what the enhancements are. But come on, man. That's rookie. That's rookie mistake. But we had this list on stream, and it was sick. It is a triple Riptide retaliation cadre. So you get the bonus strength and AP, so you can push the ion accelerators to, if I'm remembering correctly, you can push the ion accelerators up to, hey, thank you for the membership Dixie Cup as well. Appreciate that. I believe that they're AP 4, strength 11, now that they have the ion accelerator bonus. There's also a little bit of an argument here in this detachment specifically to run burst cannons for the additional shooting to clear like medium infantry squads. Typically, you don't take them because their strength and AP are low. Yeah, you get an AP 4, a strength 11. So you win vehicles on 3s or 4s now. Like heavy vehicles like Predators and stuff, you start winning on 3s, which for a Riptide battlesuit, which for the longest time has been strength 8, is insane. It's crazy. And they get all of the cool battlesuit synergies in the detachment as well. So these guys are phenomenal in this detachment. Kind of underplayed, to be honest, because the focus of the detachment is more on the crisis battlesuits, but they are battlesuit keyworded, so they get all the cool buffs. So we have Farsight, Cold Star Commander with grenade rack, so he can bombing run people and grenade them, do a bunch of mortal wounds. Enforcer Commander with ignition. He's running missile pods, so he can up down every turn. And he's going to be in a fire knife unit that gets hit rerolls. And so basically, it's long range. It's 36-inch range on the missile pods. So you're able, unlike the other units, it doesn't care so much about proximity. So you're able to up down and cut lines of sight to very particular enemies. So you can, for example, Starflare up, go into the sky, hop down and shoot like a scout squad and kill it without exposing the unit, because you can take these really oblique angles around the sides of the table. So that unit's really super strong. We have Dark Strider to just hold down the back of the table. I don't believe he was in a unit at all. He was just vibing. There is a Pathfinder team, so he could go in the Pathfinder team if your opponent has no reserve play, or you just put him in the back. And the game we had on stream, he was against Subterranean Assault Tyranids, and Dark Strider was money. Absolute money, because he just holds down fully half of your deployment zone by himself prevents any subterranean Tyranids from coming in because he has an Omni Scrambler aura, which is crazy. I think we were talking about the game on the stream there. It was probably the play for the Tyranid Biovore if he was unattached from the Pathfinder unit to just start lobbing Spore Mines at him to try to kill him so they could deep strike in the back line. It takes like 2 to 3 turns of shooting to actually kill Darkstrider with a Biovore. But if you get lucky and you kill him on the first 1 to 2 hits, my cats are fighting, chat. How dare they? Ah, damn it. If you kill him on the first 1 to 2 hits, the matchup gets so much easier for you because suddenly you can access the T'au backline. But they didn't do that, so Darkstrider just vibed the whole game and prevented them from coming in the back, which is huge. We've got the Fire Knife Battlesuit team with missile pods to go with the Starflare Ignition System guy. We've got a Starscythe Battlesuit unit with Flambers. We've got another one with Burst Cannons. These guys get a huge benefit from the Retaliation Cadre ability because they go to AP2 if they're within 9 inches of their target. So, because if they shoot a non-monster, non-vehicle, because they have a +1 AP buff innately from their own ability against non-monsters, non-vehicles, and then if they're close to their opponent, they get +1 strength and AP as well. So they go to AP2, ignore cover if you're either a flamer or you are marking the target. I believe he was also running Farsight in the flamer unit. So they were strength 5, AP2, +1 to wound flamers when they're within 9 inches of the target, which is actually horrifying when you get down to it and you're like, these actually start just wounding on 5s and putting everything on their invuln save. It's actually a reasonable amount of damage from a relatively inexpensive unit. We have a fun Sunforged Battlesuit team as well that was with another of the Cold Star Commanders with all Fusion Blasters, so just a huge number of Fusion Blasters with 3 rolls on that guy. Groot Carnivores for OBSEC, Pathfinder team for some infiltration, Double Piranhas for scouting, Riptide Battlesuits because they're really good. Not much else to say there. Double Stealth Suits for spotting as well. And we had a couple marker drones around the side of the table for the Starscythes. For example, the Flamer Starscythe Battlesuit team gets no benefit from... outside of Farsight being in the unit, it gets no benefit from being spotted because it already ignores cover and it doesn't need to roll to hit. So it can spot all the time. So you run a marker drone on the Shastra every time on that guy, just to allow them to like deep strike into a spot for something else, and then just shoot an infantry unit and blow it up and make it die. So that list is cool. I love Retaliation Cadre. Seeing a good player with Retaliation Cadre is like, holy crap. It's so much more dynamic than Kauyon, which or even Montclaw builds, where you're just like trying to play range games and get your guidance buffs and play like more standard. They shoot and scoot. The Torch Star Gambit in that detachment is crazy because you start just like actually playing essentially like melee aggro T'au. Not that you're necessarily actually punching people in melee, but you are getting onto their objectives with Crisis Battlesuit teams, which is wild. Got some Chaos Knights doing well. I think this is just normal Chaos Knight stuff. Just kidding. There's fucking double Atropos Abominate. Wait, what is this? This is Infernal Lands. It's not Lords of Dread. It feels like Lords of Dread, but it's just all big stompy boys. What the fuck? All right, that was a little bit cooler than I expected. Love that the best tile list is running Triptide and they decided to buff Riptides. Yeah, they do that occasionally. The rationale is that if you have a unit that's basically universal inside a faction, and you want to buff that faction's play rate or win rate, you just buff the good unit, right? They did this with Necrons and Wraiths a while back, because like Wraiths they were like taking in 2 to 3s in every single Necron list, and then they buffed Wraiths, and you're like, why did they do that? That stupid Wraiths are the most played thing ever. Buff something else. But the goal is to keep the Necron builds similar, but simply make them better, right? And it like unlocked an extra enhancement or an extra utility unit for them, I think in that case. And it's basically the same thing with Riptides. It's like we don't want to have to like to disrupt the T'au internal balance, but we just want the faction to be better. So we're gonna buff the unit you already take, and that basically doesn't require them to do any other work to keep things balanced inside the faction. It just makes the existing lists strictly superior. So they're just like, your win rate's gonna go up. Enjoy being stronger than you were. which is the rationale there. It is weird. It seems weird from the outset, but like from a game design balance standpoint, it does make some sort of sense. Chaos Knights beats Chad Knights. Hell yeah. Only one Tau detachment is Crude Hunting Pack. That's the it should be a sub faction. I'll die on that hill. Make Crute good by themselves again. We got double Sarasis Knight, Atropos Knight, Abominant Knight, Despoiler. No enhancements. Despoiler ×2. All Despoiler Gatling Cannons because they're great. Beast of Nurgle unit plus Nurgling Squad to unlock it. So a little bit of utility from Nurgle stuff, and then everything else is just a big boy. One big spooky boy. Which seems good. I don't know if anything else to say about that. Knight Abominant's cool. It is still the cheapest knight, but it's not. It being inexpensive doesn't really feel quite as good anymore. But I guess this probably would have been a despoiler if we didn't have to take the Nurglings to unlock our Beast of Nurgle, right? Because the Beast of Nurgle is really strong to prevent you from having to dedicate a knight to the mid-board turn 1 if you get aggressive secondaries. So if the secondaries are like, hey man, we want you to secure battle lines, area denial, and you're like, fuck, I have to send an Abominant middle of the table, top 1, and just get it killed immediately. The Beast of Nurgle is like, I got you, fam. Don't worry, I'll do it. But the downside is that obviously, like, if you take this little package, you're down basically a more expensive big knight. So the Abominant might just be in there to help that out. But he's also good, I think, into a variety of targets. The Volkite Combustor profile in the new codex is actually sick. Because it came to 12 shots, right? 12 shots, 3 damage devastating. It's a base AP 1 as well, so if you ever catch somebody out of cover. I forgot it's called a Knight Abominant. I just looked up Abominant and I was like, where doesn't he have no guns? Yeah, 12 shots. Oh, excuse me, they got rid of the AP. It's AP 0, 3 damage devastating. And you could surge it for sustained hits too. So you could be like shooting 12, hitting 10, probably a hand 6 devastating. Plus they have to take like 3 to 4 saves. If they roll a 1 or a 2 on one of those, they take 9 damage. So it's actually on like repeat attacks. Once your sample size gets larger and you start attacking more times with the Volkite Combustor, the added the stacked damage from it gets kind of crazy too. Make Swarmlord have a model passive? I don't know what that means. Make Swarmlord have a model passive. A modal passive. Excuse me, I do know what that means. I just misread the comments. That would be sick. Swarmlord is weird right now in that he's basically just a slightly different version of a Hive Tyrant, which I guess is always what he is. He's like in the Hive Tyrant kit, but it does feel weird to be like, do I take Hive Tyrant A or Hive Tyrant B? And Hive Tyrant A is like theoretically like more army support, but Hive Tyrant B is like a better fighter. So like I don't know. And his CP effect's easier to use because it's just a free CP. Although it's not quite as powerful as the free strat within 12. Because the free strat within 12 stacks with tactical objective discarding. So it's actually slightly more powerful. But Swarmlord is better at fighting and also better at shooting. And he has a gun. He's got the CP tax for him. I want to play a list still. And I think I think they're too expensive right now to justify. But I want to play a list that just runs a bunch of Hive Tyrants in Subterranean Assault, because I think like being able to like free strat tunnel network Hive Tyrants between tunnel markers and then charge with them and full hit and wound rerolling on them is like actually sick. The downside is that they can't trade for things because they're too expensive because you pay so much for army support. But if you could run Hive Tyrant plus Swarmlord and like actually make that list functional, I would be back on Tyranids, I think. I played it for a little while and I was like, this doesn't work. I can't. They have buffed Tyranids since then, so they might work better now. But I was like, I don't know. It was really cool. but it was tough because you didn't have anything on board. Because you spent 500 points on characters. Like a moron. He's not really a better fighter. He has +2 main attacks. The Hive Tyrant has 4 extra 8/2/2 attacks. Is this from Red 9 base? Or is he 8? Am I a crazy person? Oh, he is 8. The Saber attacks are like so much higher value than the extra attacks. Is there 2 extra strength, 1 extra damage, and twin linked? And he has a gun. And he prevents you from using defensive strats. Like you basically can't AOC against him, right? So like, I don't know. I think he is kind of demonstrably a better fighter. Remember the Rule of Cool? I know. Rule of Cool goes by the wayside when I lose. I don't like losing, chat. I like winning with cool stuff. I don't just like playing cool stuff. I must win. Honestly, though, I think like this next couple weeks are going to be playing a lot of new Space Marine stuff. So maybe we'll revisit Tyranids after that. I also have to play Harry Dan in Subterranean Assault. I low-key assumed that they would cut the ability to bring aircraft out of your Subterranean Assault burrows, and they never did. So I think Harry Dan's back on the menu, boys. We'll try to give him a go. I think that sounds fun as hell. Enfiladed Fusillade on that guy after coming out of a hole is super silly. He can be like lethal sustain +1 to wound reroll once to hit, ignore cover with fucking strength 10, like AP3 3 damage guns. That's wild. And you can do it while in aircraft mode, so he's like untargetable by melee attacks for the most part. That's fucking nuts. You're spending 700 points to not hold objective markers, but maybe that's fine. Maybe that's fine, chat. When you're competing, it's a different story. Oh, I'm always competing. Every game's competitive. We gotta win every time. Every time. I swear. Prefer Swarmy and Vanguard Onslaught because your brain is wrinkly as a balloon. Fair enough. Fair enough. You lose like the critical mass on Vanguard Onslaught if you don't cut to like down to just the wing type Tyrant, basically. I don't know. There's a real oops all aircraft list in Monster Mash Nid since you get OC at full wounds. That is interesting. The other Tyranid aircraft besides the Harridan are so like unspeakably bad though. Their data sheets are fucking atrocious. It's not like we can do funny stuff with Storm Raven gunships because like, oh, it's a real unit, but it just has 0 OC. They're really bad. Really, really bad. The only one that's not a dumpster fire is the Harridan. But that's only because he has the only like actually good gun in the entire codex. You got me on my tactical Tyranid tangent. We gotta walk off here and talk about Adeptus Mechanicus. Daniel Gornaccia, who I talked about on a Best Represent 40k video last week, he came up to say hi to me. Dan and I actually know each other from back in War Machine days. We actually used to play War Machine together pretty consistently. I think we would play in Masters, Event Masters. So it was cool to see him again, seeing him succeed at Adeptus Mechanicus, running Haloscreen Battleclade. He's got the double Tech Priest. He's on that double Tech Priest sauce. So he's taking Cataphrons, Breachers, and Destroyers. So you have the Destroyers of Sanctified Ordnance, so they reroll 1s to Hazardous, and then they also get the bonus range for the Flamer Overwatch, because their Overwatch is super spooky. And then you have the Cataphron Breachers with the double Doctrinas, so that you can like run up, shoot, and then charge, and punch people with your claws without being trash in melee. Because for whatever reason their baseline melee profile is really bad. But once you stack up +1 to hit rolls, all that stuff, they get actually really good. But you do, of course, need the enhancement to be able to do both of those things in a single turn. But we got Call, we got Scatrus for the expansion objective. Hold that down. Double Iron Strider Belisari, 2 units of 2. Double Scorpius Dune Riders. I always want to, because this is one word, I always want to pronounce it Duner Eider. Or maybe it's a Duneri Dare. I don't know. Somebody will have to get back to me on that. Tyraxi Skystalkers for utility. Infiltrators for the midboard. Double Rusty Boys. Double Rust Stalkers. Because we can Haloscreen Battleclade them for +2 movement, +2 advance and charge. And then they have +2 advance and charge. You can Haloscreen for them for advance and charge. And they just push your opponent into the corner. So their threat range is so long, you have to back deploy so you don't immediately get hit by them. And you have to respect their threat range. Otherwise, they're just going to hit you do a lot of damage, maybe not crippling damage, but a lot of damage, and then basically just jail your army because the unit's so big. It's like 10 40 mil base like Space Marines touching you essentially, and they just extend across like your whole frontage. You don't get to do anything, and then all of these Cataphrons and Iron Striders get to shoot you again. So if you can't push through and deal with the threat of the Scarian Ruststalkers, they're going to take your objectives, they're going to screen, they're going to movement block you, and then you're just going to get shot by Breachers again and again and again until you lose. So it's, I don't know, it's good list. The other thing, too, is that the Breachers get hit rerolls, so they aren't contingent on Belisarius Call's targeted reroll, his Oath of Moment effect that you can do. So the Destroyers, who actually don't have hit rerolls, so they love getting that baseline because their ability skill baseline is not great. The Destroyers and the Iron Strider Balistardi can shoot something to death, and then the Breachers can shoot something else. And you're going to get rerolls on all those attacks. So your army becomes extremely consistent, which is something that Adeptus Mechanicus has not been for basically the entirety of the edition. They've been essentially just like riverboat gambling on a million attacks and hope that one gets through. But nowadays with Belisarius Call and these Iron Striders getting sustained hits and full hit rerolls or full hit and wound rerolls, they actually go kind of insane. So that's pretty sweet. Is there any way to know who they put as leaders for specific units? No, it's not. Leaders, there's no requirement for leaders to be signified before the game. That happens during battle formations. What we can do, though, is we can, outside of just directly talking to the player, we can suss out combinations. So the reason that we know what most of these units are joining is that the combinations here are kind of like prescriptive, right? Cognitive Reinforcement has really no utility on any other unit in this army besides Cataphron Breachers. And the Sanctified Ordnance is basically designed explicitly for either Destroyers or Corpuscari Electro Priests. So usually if you see Sanctified Ordnance in a list, it's going to be on one of those two units. And in this case, we have Cataphron Destroyers, so we know it's going to go in there. Like giving additional range to like a Ranger unit is super useless, so we're not gonna attach there. Sometimes you get lists with just like really strange character loadouts that have like very little, like weird synergy or synergy with a lot of stuff, or lost my word. Or they like have no enhancements, and then it's a little bit more difficult to figure out where they're attaching, and you have to kind of use your best judgment. But obviously, like that information is not available to us. That happens at the table during the game. Let's see. I want to talk about Blood Angels real quick, chats. Odd giving Oath of Moment to non-Space Marine factions. Yeah, but Belisarius Call made all the Space Marines, so it makes sense when you think about it. You're like, really? Belisarius Call is basically the Emperor. He makes all the Space Marines, so he should have the Space Marine army ability as his ability, right? I'm gonna get a lore. Some lore guy's gonna come in the chat and be really mad about that statement. Come at me, bro. Advanceth towards me, brethren. Zach Keltz over here going 5-1, and we actually have a game with him. It's up on the membership right now. Zach's a sweetheart, and so he agreed to come on in the final game and play on the recorded table against Chaos Demons, which I always love to have on camera because it's my favorite faction ever, and I've never had any other favorite faction, not even once. And he is running Angelic Inheritors, which I think is really cool. And it's interesting that I think Angelic Inheritors has very slowly begun to eclipse Liberator Assault Group in the Blood Angels meta, which is wild because Liberator Assault Group is so straightforwardly strong. You get advanced in charge and your melee output basically doubles. That seems pretty good, but Angelic Inheritors has a lot of really, really cool utility stuff. The big thing is that you can fall back in charge with all of your character units, plus you get reroll once to hit. So you have baked in rerolls across the board, especially once you consider the new Sanguinary Guard profiles where they're weapon skill 2. Getting reroll 1s there is huge, right? Because it's essentially full of rerolls at that point. You also get an up-down, which is kind of enormous as well. And the reason that that's enormous is this big fucking Inceptor squad right here. Look at all these Sanguinary Guard, by the way. 12 2+ weapon skill Sanguinary Guard. with the new benefits as of the last data slate update to get those rerolls. But the Inceptor Squad is a big deal because it immediately puts your opponent on the back foot. The reason being is that their stratagem puts you in strategic reserve, which you can come out of bottom of 1 if the unit reserving has Deep Strike. So, as soon as the game begins, if the Blood Angels player is going second, you instantly have to screen out all of your units. And it's hard to do because the Inceptor's 6-inch Deep Strike. So immediately, they can deploy the Inceptors on the table, up them bottom of 1, and just drop and kill something instantly. They just Oath of Moment it, full hit and wound rerolls. It's, whatever it is, 12 AP3 3 damage plasma shots, like, out of the blue. So you're just going to start losing pieces immediately if you don't respect the Inceptor Squad. And so unlike Liberator, where a lot of your threats are on board, your opponent is simply trying to manage the units that are going to be running at them with advance and charge, you have to deal with this unit just immediately able to basically start taking pieces off your table from the very beginning. Interestingly, we're running double Bulb Predators in this list as well, which are a great piece to open up this combo by killing your opponent's utility units early, because they're very fast, right? They have assault and all their weapons. They can run up the table and they can just cook like little 5-man infantry squads and stuff. They can force your opponent to overcommit to kill them because it's still a Predator defensive profile. So even if it's close to you, they're not going to die like instantly. You actually have to commit anti-tank to remove them. And then that opens up spots for the Inceptors to drop in, or for you to rapid ingress the Sanguinary Guard and stuff like that. So they can act as a really, really powerful, like, sort of opener to the army. And that allows you to play around the typical downside of Angelic Inheritors, which is that it's much slower than Liberator. Because Liberator is going to stand on the table, and because it has advance and charge, and you can have bonuses like Dante +1 to advance, which I believe that's right. I said that really nonchalantly, but I'm pretty sure that's how that works. Yes, +1 to advance and charge. Woo-hoo. Okay. So he extends your threat range by 2 inches if you're advancing as well. So, like, you have this onboard threat range that your opponent can kind of manage. However, if this army is in your face starting a treaty game right off the bat, and then always threatening the ability to either up and then rapid ingress, or up and then draw 6-inch Deep Strike, the downside that your units only move 12 inches baseline is kind of alleviated, which is huge. So we got 12 Sanguinary Guard, a Stormspeeder Thunderstrike, which I think is really cool. It gives you +1 to wound with your shooting attacks against monsters and vehicles. The combination of that guy and either the Inceptors or the Bulb Predators is horrifying. Especially since if you're Battle Round 2 onwards, you can start the Thunderstrike in reserve, up the Inceptors, like bottom of 1, I guess, or bottom of round 1, and then drop both them and the Thunderstrike, give +1 to wound, Oath of Moment, and then now the Inceptors are wounding even heavy targets on 4s with rerolls as well. They can also give +1 to wound to the Predators, which makes the Flamestorm Cannons good at killing vehicles. If you're a T11 vehicle, the Flamestorm Cannons are AP2, 2 damage, ignore cover, auto-hitting. Usually they wound on 5, so they're just going to tickle you a little bit. If you put 2 Predators with 2d6 Heavy Flamers and 2 d6 +3 Flamestorm shots, all of them wounding on 4s or maybe 5s at worst, ignoring cover, 2 Predators are actually going to kill a tank, right? A T10 or like 9 or 10 tank, which is cool. So this little dude opens up a lot of your shooting in a way that your opponent might not be prepared for, right? They look at this and they see a bunch of infantry sweeping, and they're like, all right, your real damage is coming from your Sanguinary Guard. And you're like, nah, Thunderstrike is going to make it so that anything can kill your vehicles, anything in the army, any of the infantry's killing ranged units can kill your vehicles, and then we don't need Oath of Moment to kill you in melee with the Sanguinary Guard because they're going to get reroll ones baked in from the detachment ability, and they hit on 2s anyway. Very cool. It totally makes sense to me why, with the new updates, why Angelic Inheritors is beating out Liberator. The toolbox is huge. I don't think I believed on it before the Sanguinary Guard went to 2+ weapon skill, because you saw a lot of times, like even with the reroll ones, they would like bounce off something, or their threat range would get managed or whatever. But now that you can focus a little bit more ranged power because you don't need your melee units to get Oath of Moment, I think this attachment is actually sick. So that's really cool to see. Very cool list. Good stuff, chat. But that's Battle for Salvation. I would like to talk about the Gem City real quick here. This is the other large event of the weekend. I'm also going to take a little sip of water real quick. Doing a lot of varied lists lately. Yeah, like we talked about at the beginning, the metagame is probably in the best spot maybe in 40K's history ever. Which is like crazy. Not only are most armies in the game like competitively viable, we'll see how Drukhari shakes out. I've heard both reports that it's terribly bad and horrible, and that it's unspeakably broken and really good. And I'm just gonna leave it to Drukhari players to showcase which one of those it is. But like Imperial agents aren't that good. I don't know. Like Custodies are all right, I guess. And then everything else wins GTs. Like, cool. Imperial Knights are like fine. They just hit some bad matchups, I guess. But that's kind of the perennial Knight issue. It's great. Drukhari seem to have internal balance issues. It does seem to be like when we were looking over the codex, Hellions were like so insanely pushed. It was wild. It was like, oh, I guess every army's 3 of these and 3 Scourges, I suppose. Okay, sure, let's go. Depends on who plays them. Yeah, that is classic. That is classic. Melee focused Titans. Yeah, I mean that's probably not the kind of Knights you should be playing, though, in fairness. I'm not gonna say that every data sheet is balanced. Every faction is viable. Not every unit in every faction is viable. That's certainly the case. But as long as you get to the point where every faction can play with at least one archetype, and honestly, most of them have multiple. You know, even individual fucking Space Marine chapters have multiple archetypes available. Black Templars, you're gonna play Ironstorm, you're gonna play Gladius. You're gonna play Champion or Spearhead of whatever it's called. Sanctic Spirit? No, that's the Grey Knights one. You know, Blood Angels, you're gonna play Liberator, you're gonna play the other thing. Godhammer Assault Force, that's the one. I don't know. It's great. It's great. Like when you have internal balance within sub factions, like things are going crazy. Even if you're not really seeing a lot of play from like, I don't know, what's a bad Black Templars unit? Regular Crusade squads, I guess. So I'm having trouble finding a Black Templars unit that's not played very often. I guess the Execrator. Execrators aren't super pushed, I guess, right now. I don't know. Crusade Ancients are mid. But when they came out, we did talk about some lists that were doing well. Some factions only have one archetype. Bro, Peerless Bladesman Fulgrim just won a GT. I'm not even sure that's true anymore. It's probably true. I think Coterie the Conceited is certainly still the best. But man, did Falco show us you can win with fucking whatever this weekend. That was crazy. Watch my video this morning. Talk about Fulgrim. All right, the Gem City GT. We talked about these lists in my video this morning, but I do want to talk about the other ones. Conan Jennings over here with 3 100-point wins playing probably Black Templars, but we'll find out. Refuse to play Emperor's Children without Fulgrim? Dude, you must be amazing. Oh, it's Shadowmark Talon. All right, fair enough. Is it the normal Shadowmark Talon list? Yeah, all right, I'm bored already. Whatever. We'll see this list a million times before it gets nerfed. I don't even know if it will get nerfed. It basically builds itself. So there was the one person who won with it this weekend did an interesting thing and they took Vindicators, but that was about it. Let's see. We got some World Eaters, army we haven't talked about yet. Max Sailor with Vessels of Wrath. Brother, what? That's sick. That's incredible. This is the one where you choose things to get extra Blessings of Corn. 3 units become a Vessel of Wrath. They select a blessing not currently active, and your blessing is active for all Vessels of Wrath units in addition to the other ones. That's sick. And it's any 3 models. So any non-epic hero character, 8-bound champions, Exalted 8-bound champion, Khorne, Berserker Champion, or World Eaters Terminator Champion. So the unit leaders, each of those would get those. So you can basically always unlock like lethal or sustain on them, even if the rest of the army is doing like fight on death or whatever. So it incentivizes you to play a bunch of powerful characters. So we have a Demon Prince of Khorne with Gateways to Glory, which I think is move through walls. It is move horizontally through models and terrain features. We'd love to see it. Another one with Vox Diabolus, which is each time you destroy an enemy unit with a melee attack, you get a CP on a 4+ +1 if you're a Vessel of Wrath. And then Slaughterbound with Arch Slaughterer, +1 AP and to your weapons, +1 damage if you're a Vessel of Wrath as well. So he gets the classic like 9 attacks at damage 3, AP 3, damage 3, devastating. That's disgusting. Thanks, I hate it. The detachment has reroll wounds against monsters and vehicles. That's very good. +1 strength and AP on non-character berserkers. Weird. What a specific keyword selection. You can blood surge move any infantry, mounted, or demon prince unit for a CP. And Khorne berserkers or vessel units get to reroll the number of the distance that they go. And you get -1 to be, or you get transhuman effects. -1 to be wounded if you're a Vessel of Wrath unit in the opposing shooting phase, or obsec. Just obsec. Oh, if you kill somebody on an objective. What a fucking cool detachment, chat. What the hell? This is the Grotsmas one, I believe, and it kind of came out to a bunch of nothing, but it seems okay. I wonder. I don't think the Slaughterbound was out right when this dropped. I don't believe, if I remember correctly. And so I was like, what are we gonna do with this? But on Slaughterbounds, it makes total sense. We've got 8-bound ×2, exalted 8-bound ×3. Oh, okay. What else is in the list? It's a bunch of 8-bound. Nice. Let's go. So it's Karn with Berserkers because that unit's just really good. And then otherwise it's a Demon Prince and the rest of the list is 8-bound. Which means you can basically choose like 25% of this army, like of the models in this army are selectable for Vessels of Wrath. The only reason it's so low is because of these Khorne Berserkers. Otherwise, it's literally 30% of all 8-bound plus all of the Demon Princes. Actually, it's probably closer to, 25% is probably correct. It's closer to like 50% if you just discount the Khorne Berserker unit. That's sick. That's super cool. I love this list, chat. This is so straightforward. What the fuck? I want to see this list played. This looks insane. You could put a sustained lethal. I wonder if you even like there's reason to play like a 6-man exalted unit, because you can like ingress in and then combat orbit a Slaughterbound into a new thing, right? And then the Arch Slaughter or Slaughterbound into monsters and vehicles can be 9 attacks, AP 3, 4 damage, full wound rerolls, lethal plus sustained hits. The dude will kill a fucking knight. Dude, this army's really cool. What the fuck? Max Sailor, good job. 4-1 with the fucking coolest World Eaters list ever. That's so sick. That's super cool. Don't 8-bound get +1 damage against monster vehicles? Yeah. Yeah, they do. The exalted ones do. That's super cool. Wonder if the game can cope with another wave of Grotsmas attachments. As long as they nip broken stuff in the bud quickly, I think it probably can. Honestly, I feel like maybe it's in a better spot than it was Grotsmas last year, because Grotsmas, I guess this year, like 2025 or 2020, no, last year, 2024, felt very rushed. Like it felt like a lot of the detachments that they released, they just put on paper and then released them. Which I understand, right? If you're under crunch and you're like, hey, we're going to build a fucking literally like 5 factions worth of detachments in a month. Like, yeah, some of those are going to be really dog shit. But if they do it again, I imagine they'll have a better workflow, and I bet that they'll at least give them all a pass through like the playtesting. For sure, none of the Grosspus detachments the first time around, or at least very few of them were playtested appropriately. You know, you got like on one hand you got like more DACA, and on the other hand you got like original Hearthband, which is just like the most unplayable garbage. But the other thing too I want to say about Grosspus detachments is that they did not just leave them, which is crazy. Because it seems to me like if you are prioritizing something to rebalance, it would be the stuff that's in the codexes that you sell for money, not the stuff that you have available online for free. But instead, they've treated them like they're part of the faction codexes. They've treated them as independent, like, you know, pieces of publications that they will rebalance live, right? And I think in previous editions, in 9th edition, if they had released online content like that and it was bad, they would have just left it. But now, like, Hearthband's been totally reworked. Like Scintillating Legion got totally reworked. Legion of Excess got nerfed into oblivion. More DACA killed the game for a sec and then was nerfed again. Although it got nerfed too much in my opinion, but that's just me. But like I don't know, I've been impressed with how they handled the Grosspus detachments. If they do it again, I bet it's gonna be sweet. I bet it's gonna break the game for a month, and they're gonna be like, "Hey guys, we know what's up now. We're gonna fix this shit." Or they're not gonna do that, and it's gonna be a mess. It's a coin flip. I'm hoping for the former. We'll see. We'll see. Hope they playtest it before publishing. Yeah. They could do something like they did in AOS and do alternative datasheets for less used units. Tell me about that, Cameron. I've never heard of that before because I am not Age of Sigmar pilled. If that's cool. If true, cool if true. I like the idea of doing like, and this is something we've toyed with for Breachstorm as well. Right now, our big, beyond like our own time, our big, what's the word? Like roadblock for new releases is sculpting time, because we sculpt a lot of stuff in house, but we just don't have time to do it right now. And so we've been like, what if we just release like new profiles for stuff that's like inside a sub faction? And I think it would be interesting to do that for 40k. You know, just like a new assault intercessor unit with slightly different rules or something to represent something else. It would be Hounds of Mordkai again. Let's go! Hounds of Mordkai. I love those guys. These guys are sweet. Actually, unironically good on release too. When you could do the thing, NC Conroy did this on the channel a couple times. When you could do the thing where you could deep strike and then shoot and scoot with a Phobos Lieutenant, that unit was actually sick. Because then they would just go in with like 40 devastating wound attacks and like hand you 8 damage. It was really silly. But then they nerfed that and it sucked again. And then they legended the unit. So womp. Womp, womp, womp. Age of Sigmar, they did an event called Scourge of Gyran. For every faction released a special Scourge of Gyran datasheet were slightly different. You either took them or the original. Were they like match playable, or were they like a crusade thing? Feels like it would be kind of crusade-y. It sounds cool though. I mean, I'd love to see that for sure. All right, champ. I don't know if I have any other cool lists to talk about right now. There's some like kind of normal ones. I think that 2 demon players tied the mirror match. That's pretty exciting if you're you tie a mirror. That's pretty wild. It was an almost perfect mirror. They both played Shadow Legion with a Fate Thirster. What the fuck? Is this the Accursed Cultist list? Yeah. and a Night Despoiler. That's a TJ Lanigan special right there, this list. Versus Rendmaster on Bloodthrone. Oh, that's a great combo with the Fate Thirster. The fucking Fate Thirster always fails to kill what he charges. And this little dude being like, +1 AP, +1 damage, make sure you kill it. That's great. Although the real downside is this guy just misses a bunch of times. Because he's 7 attacks, no rerolls. So you miss 1 time, you miss 2 times, and you're immediately like 20% down on your expected damage. And if your opponent spikes saves a little bit, you just lose. The number of games I've seen where the Fate Thirster hits something, fails to kill it, and then dies and the game's over it's too many. Double Bloodletters, they can advance and charge this attachment, so they're great. Nurglings are phenomenal in this attachment. Screamers are great. What a list. This is cool. Double Raptors as well, for utility. It's cool because they have, it's just like 3+ save 2 in infantry, which is just slightly hard to kill, and not really something that Demons have had access to previously. So you have -1 to wound Nurglings, -1 to hit Screamers, and then like kind of resilient utility units that aren't just like an invuln save guy. And so the army is actually, it scores crazy. The scoring potential of Shadow Legion with this build is wild, especially since the Bloodthirsters can like ingress in weird spots and then advance and charge. And get the benefit from the Rendmaster to clear enemy objectives. They're very good at clearing out objectives. If they're near the Fate Thirster too, when they engage, they get hit on 2s as well. So they can hit on 2s, you can Lance Lethal them, and they can go to Strength 6, AP 4, 3 damage. Which is wild. For 110 points a unit, that's pretty good. Pretty good, chat. Green Knight's undefeated Overwatch. Yeah, I talked about it. I talked about it in my video this morning. That was a cool list. It had Psycan and Purifiers in it, which was nice. That's cool to see. I talked to David Ozawa at Crucible about those, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, these are the MVP of the list. People don't expect them to do a lot of damage because they're used to seeing the incinerators, and then I shoot them from 24 inches and they die, and they're like, "Excuse me, what do you mean you just handed me 9 2 damage saves, and I've lost my utility unit?" I was like, "Yeah, that tracks actually. It makes total sense." Full hit and wound rerolls on, even if you're only AP1, not ignoring cover on Psycannon profile, full hit and wound rerolls is enough to put them over the edge to actually kill stuff, which is fair enough. I liked it. I talked about that. Bloodletters are bad unless you give them Bloodthirster and a Rendmaster. Just 470 points of blood buff units. Yeah, it's interesting. I think, in my opinion, so I've been playing them in Crusade, which is obviously not real 40k. But I've been playing them in Shadow Legion in that format, and the thing that pushes them over the edge is Lance, in my opinion. I don't disagree with you on Demonic Incursion. The only if they were cheaper in Demonic Incursion, I think they would be good because they're kind of like a Hormigaunt unit in that detachment, where you just like you just bang a charge onto an objective and you put a bunch of OC there and they do some damage and you're like, cool. But the Lance is such a big force multiplier on them. If you can get the Bloodthirster into the vicinity, and to be fair, it's not like the Bloodthirster's only role is buffing that unit. He's doing something and also buffing that unit. Because all you need is one Bloodletter to end their pile-in move within 6 inches of the Bloodthirster, and the whole unit gets the buff. The +1 to hit buff. If they are +1 to hit and wound, so you pay the CP for Lance, if you don't need it on the Bloodthirster, obviously, then the damage with the Rendmaster buff is actually like, it's a fucking insane for 110 points. It's wild. So like they're hitting on 2s, winning on 4s onto anything, if not better. Basically like cutting through essentially your entire armor save and hitting you for 3 damage. So like they'll just kill a Land Raider or whatever. Like it's not even hard. So like I don't know. I think it's Shadow Legion that pushes them over. I don't disagree. I don't think that they're worth the points in Demonic Incursion. Like they're good in like very explicit circumstances. We had this discussion ages ago because I don't remember the player name now, and I apologize, but he kind of lit me up in the comments a little bit because I was saying the same thing. Bloodletters I don't think are a good data sheet just like on their baseline, and he won a GT with them in Russia with Scarbrand and a Bloodthirster. And he was like, listen, the trading potential once they're fully buffed is crazy. And I was like, I'm not sure it's worth it. But when you have a 1 CP strat to basically double their damage, I think it immediately becomes worth it. So I don't know. I think that they're very, I wouldn't say that I think that they're like an incredibly strong unit, but I think they're very viable in Shadow Legion specifically. Demonic Incursion, nah. I'd take Plague Bearers and just tie your opponent up forever for the same cost. But Shadow Legion, their damage output actually is severe. Bloodmaster gives them +1 to wound. Yeah, so I tried this for a hot minute. I was like, I'm gonna play a Fade Master, or play like a Bloodmaster in Bloodletters, because I was like, it's gonna be better. It was not better. It was bad. There's a funny thing you can do in Shadow Legion, which I actually kind of like, where you play Leaping Shadows. If you're not playing a Cursed Cultist, you play Leaping Shadows of the Bloodmaster, and you 9-inch scout that unit, and you just threaten the whole middle of the table with them. I think that's cute. Otherwise, I don't think the Bloodmaster's worth it, because it's a trading unit that's going to hit something, maybe kill it, contest their objective, and then instantly die. They're so easy to kill, it's crazy. And putting a character in there just means that when your unit dies, you're going to lose more points than you would otherwise. So it's like not even worth it, right? It's just like, fuck, whatever, who cares? So if you're not doing like funny enhancement things, I don't think I would take a Bloodmaster. I think he's cute, but I wouldn't take him. Anyway, chat. Wouldn't you just use a Bloodmaster instead to give them permanent +1 to wound? So, I mean, I again, you're 2-for-1ing yourself in that point, and then also it's also not as good as the Lance effect, because the Lance gives you AP3 baseline. So if the Rendmaster's buffing you, you go to AP4 and you prevent your opponent from being able to save in most situations if you're not on an invuln save. And most of the time, you don't want to send them into things with an invuln save, right? Because, like, you know, they want to... Corn stuff wants to be just high AP hitting, you know, big armor stuff, right? You want to hit a unit of Space Marines with those guys, go to AP3, put them on a 6-up save, and just kill them. Ooh, chant. I am a sleepy baby. So I think that's going to be our last list for today. What a discussion, though. It's been good. It's been good stuff. I will send you over. So we're going to be live tomorrow. I want to talk about team events. There are a bunch of large team events this weekend that I think is definitely worth talking about, because the metagame has shifted quite a bit since you've talked about team events last. So I think it's worth discussing what's winning in the team format. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow, and then we'll be back for Warhamster Wednesday. Friday evening, I will be live with the Tennessee Elite Open. So that event has an interesting format where Friday evening is the first round, but the first round's optional. If you do not want to play the first round, you don't have to. You are just ineligible for prizes. It basically like puts the event in 2 separate brackets. Or it makes you ineligible for top placement. You can't win the event if you don't play all 6 rounds. But it allows players who just want to play 5 games to not necessarily have to go play the 6th. But then it also allows the event to go to a single undefeated. So I think it was a cool format. We're going to be live all weekend with that. And I should have a video out tomorrow about Leagues of Votann. I will almost certainly have video content out later this week about the new Space Marine stuff as well. So that'll be good. Anyway, chance. Oh, I'm tired. Time to finally get some sleep? If only. If I have a bunch of emails to reply to, and then I have to pair all of the fucking events from my TTS server. It never ends, Chan. The cycle never ends. And then I'm getting up early tomorrow to take my car to the shop to get repaired, because it has, I think I calculated, I put something like 60,000 miles on it in the last 2 years of live streaming. Basically just live streaming. So, woo. It's accrued a couple of faults that I need to get fixed. So, we're going to get up early tomorrow morning to do that. So yeah, chat. That's going to be it for me today. What car? I have a 2019 Honda Civic, which I love dearly. I saved my pennies after pandemic. I bought it with cash in like 2020, 2021 maybe. And it's fucking the most solid car I could expect. It was funny. I was like, I had a list of criteria that I really wanted in a car when I went to buy it. And I looked at like 20 cars. And I was like, these are like the mileage isn't good, or the acceleration's not good, or like the long distance driving is not good enough. And I fucking sat in that car and I was like, this car is perfect. It's like a kind of an upgunned model. It has a bunch of extra features on it, and they're all like amazing. It's interesting because I think that I would not be live streaming events if I didn't buy that car, because it does cross country driving so well. It's about gas mileage is incredible, and it has adaptive cruise control. It's basically it would be impossible for me to do long distance driving at a high rate without that car. I love it. I love that little guy. Paid off your Taurus. A month later, it got totaled. Dude, I'm sorry. That sucks. I would be so sad if my little Honda Civic got crushed. It would make me sad. Is it going to the same mechanic as last time? It is not. It is going to the mechanic that fixed the one last time that fucked my car over. Yeah, we're not going to that other guy. That was a fucking mess. What a mess that was. For context, I took it to a mechanic for an oil change. I just need an oil change. And they're just like, yeah, it'll be 20 minutes. By the way, do you want new brake pads? Your brake pads are worn. I was like, yeah. And they gave me a fucking great replacement. I was like, amazing. Turns out they never serviced a Honda Civic before. Freaking wild. And they stripped out the brake sensors when they replaced my brake pads. And I don't know how they did it. And the technician I took it to afterwards was also unsure. But they almost made it undrivable. Because the software, turns out, is not a fan of when you remove the brake sensor. So that was bad. Had to get it replaced, and it was a mess. So yeah, I'm not going to that guy. That was horrible. Anyway, Chance, I am gonna go and do other things now. So thanks everyone for hanging out with me. I think I'm gonna be live this evening. I have some footage to capture. I have an integration coming up with Warpforged, the card game, and I kind of want to play it on stream. So I'll probably be live later this evening doing that, and otherwise I will obviously be live tomorrow. So I'll see you then. Cheers, everyone! Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers, have a good one.